right. You also need to listen together, a podcast about Fruits Basket by Natsuki Takaya. I'm Ellen.
And I'm Kayla.
And today we're discussing chapters 82 and 83.
Woo.
Yay!
Sort of.
Yeah. Let's just get into it, because, we're going to do our summary discussion and then spoiler discuss all the things.
Should you announce the next reading, or are we going to do that at the end?
Well, we can do it now. That's fine. We were going to read, I think I said many times that for a long time this will be like 2 chapters at a time, but we decided just now that we would read 3 chapters in a row next time. So next week we'll be doing 84 to 87. That's the number, right? 84 to 86.
No. Yeah.
Yes.
84,
that's
85, 86.
6. Yep. I can count. For sure. So yeah, because it's all kind of one, there's one topic in all of them. So we'll do that, and then we'll do 87 by itself. And then we'll be back in a rhythm of 2 at a time, at least for a little while. So it's going to be a good time.
I mean, it's...
Maybe at the end we'll have some catharsis.
Storytelling-wise, it's good, but...
Yeah.
It's never an emotionally happy thing, usually.
Well, when we did, like, the true form, it was emotionally happy at the end, right? Yeah. But all the middle part was sad. There was, like, multiple resolutions of feelings, because there was, like, Kyo feeling like someone finally understood him in Tohru, and then also Shisho and Kyo recognizing their feelings for each other. So there was a lot of good feelings too. But yeah, same diff next time. Yeah. Bad things are gonna happen. That's fine. We're in this together, guys. This is why we read this beautiful shoujo manga, right? This is the romance comedy we all signed up for. It still makes me laugh to this day. Anyway, it's going to be a good time. Let's start. Chapter 82 opens with Shigure, Yuki, Tohru, and Kyo at the dinner table, and Tohru asks Yuki if it's true that there will be a campfire and fireworks at the Culture Fest this year, and Yuki says it's kind of impossible, and he apologizes. Impossible, you say? Shigure adds. I lit up the entire campus with spotlights. And then we see a little memory of Yame in high school saying, "Now sparkle, my house of learning," which is great. Could you not use Nissan as an example? Yuki asks, and Toru's like, "Oh, that sounds so romantic." And Kyo is like, "The electric bill." And Shigure is like, "To be romantic, you have to spend money. Kyo-chan, you have no imagination." And Kyo is like, "Oh, really? I didn't know that." Tohru asks if everyone would like to have gelatin for dessert. And Yuki asks if she made it. And she says, yes, she ended up making a lot. "Let me guess," Kyo says. "You went to see Rin in the hospital." "Yes, how did you know?" Tohru asks. And Kyo says it seemed like she would. "It seems like you've been guessing everything right about me recently, Kyo-kun," Tohru says, and he's like, "You don't think you're too easy to read?" "That's not true, is it?" Tohru says, blushing, and he says, "Your voice is getting quieter, And Yuki watches the exchange. "You went to the hospital. Did Rin seem okay?" Yuki asks. More specifically, she didn't swing the IV at you? And Tohru and Kyo are like, huh? Tohru says that she would never do that, and Kyo is like, who would do that? And Yuki thinks they exist. There's also a little teeny tiny chibi drawing of Haru saying that she did. It's the best chibi thing I've seen in this, I think. Tohru says that Rin was looking better, and Shigure says, "I'm terribly sorry that you had to get mixed up with Rin. Dragging you into family problems. We've caused you trouble." Tohru doesn't respond right away, but one of the boys says to Shigure for starting to eat his jelly already. "No, I'm not troubled at all," Tohru says. "Absolutely not, never." Yuki and Kyo look back at her after the outburst, or what seems to be an outburst based on the way they reacted, and Shigure says, "Thank you. The least I could do to thank you is feed you delicious gelatin. Say, ah." And Yuki and Kyo are like, "Hey, scumbag adult." Tohru remembers the other night with Rin. She seemed to be suffering as she held me, Tohru thinks. I was pathetic. All I could do was hold her in return. She remembers visiting Rin in the hospital. Rin lays back, her arm covering her eyes. Her food is untouched, and Tohru asks about it. "It's all food that I hate," Rin says. "What food do you not hate?" Tohru asks. Rin lifts her arm and looks out of the corner of one eye at Tohru, then closes them and covers them again. "Gelatin," she says. Later, Tohru walks down the hall at school and thinks, I keep thinking things like, if only there was something I could do. I must be getting more and more conceited, but I can't help but think those things. I'm sure that for a long time she's been holding on by herself, enduring by herself, suffering from the pain in her heart all alone. Tohru remembers Rin freaking out on the floor when she came home from school, and then when Kyo ran away toward the end of chapter 15, which was Valentine's Day, in case anybody forgot when that was. It's when he's, like, out in the woods and he's all, like, huddled up. We talked about it for a long time when we recorded that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Tohru goes to visit the hospital again and almost gets turned away because Rin's not supposed to have visitors, but another nurse says that girls are okay. Because when Haru was there, Rin swung the IV at him, I guess. Tohru comes in the room and Rin, who's sitting on the bed with her hair tied back, says, "You came again?" And Toru's eyes widen and she clasps her hands excitedly and freaks out. "You're so cute! This is the first time I've seen you with your hair tied back. It looks really good on you." Rin says nothing and then immediately starts to take her hair down, and Toru's like, "What are you doing?" And Rin says she just tied it up because it was getting in the way of being examined, and Tohru says, "But it looks so good. It would be a waste not to." "Oh, that's right, I brought you some gelatin." And Rin is like, "You really brought some? How stupid." And Tohru is like, nervously, and then says that it may have been presumptuous, but she made some and kept it cold on the way to the hospital. And Rin sort of frowns, but with the teeniest, tiniest blush I've ever seen in a manga, says, "Later. I'll eat it later. I don't like eating in front of people." And Tohru says, "Okay," and kind of stashes it in the refrigerator in her room. "Why did you come?" Rin asks. "Should I guess?" "Yes," Tohru says cheerfully, and Rin says, "It's about the Zodiac curse, isn't it?" Tohru freezes, and then suddenly stands and freaks out and apologizes and thinks, "I completely forgot! No, it's not that I completely forgot, but I was only thinking about Asusa-san herself. So you could say I carelessly put it to the side. But no, now that I've said that I would get involved, I mustn't be careless. Why is it that when I think about one thing, my head gets so full that I'm the worst. I'm the worst. I'm ashamed of myself." And Rin is like, "What?" Because she's just standing there freaking out internally. Later, they take a walk outside, and Tohru tells Rin that Akito told her that he is like God, and that the Zodiac will always be by his side. As Rin unties her hair, Tohru asks, "Is that what the curse is to everyone? Is the bond the curse?" Rin sighs. "It's not like I have any memories of it, but God and the Zodiac spirits made a promise," she says, looking up. "I'm sure of it. A long time ago, hundreds of years ago, to be together for eternity. Even if they were reborn several times, they would go to his side and never leave. They would always, always be together. We members of the Zodiac are still bound by that promise. Even with no memories of it, the blood of the spirits remembers." Tohru remembers Shisho saying during their meeting, "Connected by blood, a bond of blood." "A bond might look like a beautiful thing from the outside," Rin says, "but if those involved see it as a burden, it's nothing but a shackle. That's why it's a curse." Rin kneels and Tohru kneels beside her. Tohru wonders if there is really no way to break the curse, and Rin says, "I don't even know if Akito knows a way. Not like he would tell us if he did, though. I thought if it was someone close to Akito, maybe, but Gurini says that he doesn't know either." Tohru looks over with sudden realization. "What about Kureno-san?" she asks, and she remembers Kyo saying that he's Akito's personal secretary. Quote unquote. But Rin says, "He's no good. He does whatever Akito says. He won't help us. He's suspicious to begin with. I can't think of him as one of us." Tohru doesn't think that he's suspicious, and Rin says that she wouldn't understand. And Tohru remembers Kureno saying goodbye to her after her stealth mission, smiling sadly. Tohru suddenly stands and declares that she's going to see Kureno-san, but Rin grabs her ankle and she flops to the ground with a "Wah!" "Don't go rushing in by yourself," Rin says, and Tohru apologizes. "Do you honestly think you'll break anything being like that?" Rin pauses and looks away. "Why?" she asks. "Why do you want to break the curse? The thing that you can't give up? What is it? The thing that's most important to you? What is it?" "It's," Tohru starts to say with a smile, but the smile fades to an expression of distress as she remembers a person, to me, that looks like Akito. There's like a very thin panel on the page. Rin notices her expression and says, "It doesn't matter. Just don't do things on your own, like going to see Kureno by yourself." Tohru looks down, kind of upset, but she quickly recovers and replies, "As long as you promise me that you won't work too hard by yourself, Isuzu-san." Rin looks over a bit surprised but doesn't reply. Tohru says, "And so a partnership is born, am I right?" "I don't need someone as unreliable as you for a partner," Rin huffs, and Tohru is like, I'll do my best, I'll work really hard." When Tohru returns home later that night, Kyo and Yuki notice that she isn't looking well. She might have a fever. And Tohru says that her head has so little space that it fills up quickly. Kyo feels her forehead, and by that I mean he covers her whole face with his hand.
You're supposed to use the back of your hand, Kyo.
I know. Kyo, whatever. He doesn't know how to people either. He's just like, "I care about you. Let me touch your face." Anyway, he asks a thinking fever, and then he tells her to let them know if she still has one when she wakes up in the morning, and she blushes. Tohru remembers Rin asking, "The thing that's most important to you, what is it?" As she gets in bed, she thinks, "Why was I so speechless? Before I would have been able to reply right away." Tohru tosses and turns and rolls over on her side. She hears some noise in another room and then realizes she isn't in Shigure's house anymore. She's in an apartment. Yes, she thinks, it's the apartment where we always lived. Just the two of us. A familiar smell. Toru's mom walks over and kneels above her as she lies on a futon, half asleep. I'm off, Tohru, Kyoko says, and walks away, quietly slipping out the front door so as not to disturb her daughter. Toru's eyes open. No, she thinks, you can't go. You'll be in an accident. Don't go. Come back. Don't go. Tohru jolts awake, eyes wide, sweating, and she rolls over to look at where her mother was and sees only her darkened bedroom in Shigure's house. She walks to the bedroom door. Mom, she says, opening it and peering down the dark hallway, disoriented and disheartened. We see the narration, always together, and Tohru shuts the door. At the hospital, Rin sits in bed, and she thinks, I can't explain it to anyone, but on the other side of that door I'm afraid that she's starting to fall apart. Somehow I just feel it. Rin thinks of her mother, then Tohru smiling. If that happens, no one can bring her back. I just hope that she can find the right person for her, like Haru was there for me. Someone who will gently open that door. People can't help but be drawn to someone like her. Rin looks down. She's taken a bite of the gelatin that Tohru made for her. This tastes good, she says. Rin thinks, people who know how scary it is to be alone can't help loving others. And the chapter ends with the next morning at Shigure's house. Fever-free Tohru greets Yuki and Kyo with a bubbly good morning and sorry for worrying you. And that's the end. I know we're not comparing, like, sadness of things because none of them can be compared, but I swear this is the saddest thing I've read so far in this series, honestly. Anyway.
I was gonna say, it's a different kind of sadness. This chapter intro of tiny baby Yuki in these windows is pretty sad.
Yes. Yes, Kayla's talking about the drawing in between the two chapters. I don't know if it's in the special edition ones, but yeah, it's a good time. Okay. Chapter 83 opens at school. Yuki, some girls call. Is it true that there's going to be a campfire and fireworks at the culture festival? And later some other kid says, you're going to be giving baked potatoes out to all the students at the campfire? Incredible! It really is incredible, Yuki says to Nao in the hallway, at which they realize that it's so incredible it defies common sense. Nao whinges about having to go around and deny all the rumors, of course. And they wonder who spread the rumors. Nao says it's irresponsible, and Yuki says, I wish I could see the face of whoever's behind it. And they run into Kakeru in the hallway, who looks like he's playing a game or something on his phone, maybe? I don't know, it's hard to tell. He pulls off his headphones and greets them. Oh, hey, Yun, about the plan for the campfire and fireworks that I suggested. Did it not go through? So it was you bastard, Yuki says, grabbing Kakeru's neck. That insane plan was unanimously voted down in the meeting that you missed. Don't call it insane, Kakeru says. I put my heart and soul into that plan so people would be excited about the festival. Now Yuki continued to scold him until Kimi arrives with Machi. Kimi announces that Machi has been away sick from school since the time that she missed with the council room, and Machi looks down, bangs covering her eyes. I see, Yuki says, remembering Machi's panicked expression when he and Kakeru found her, and Kakeru telling him that they're half-siblings. Kimi was sure that it was because she didn't want to take responsibility for trusting the council room was running away, she adds, and Yuki's like, Kimi! Now piles on, asking why Machi did that. Machi bows and formally apologizes. I'm very sorry for causing such trouble. I won't do it again. I won't ever do it again. I promise. Kakeru loosens his tie, kind of nervously, and Nao isn't satisfied yet. You say that, but you've done this before, haven't you? You say that you won't do it again, but talking like that, doesn't that drive you into a corner even more? Yuki asks, and Machi doesn't look up. Saying that you won't do it anymore doesn't solve the problem. Both parties need to understand why you do it. Before Machi can reply again, Kakeru and Kimi freak out, and they're like, wow, such nice things to say, Union, you're so kind, and Yuki's like, what? It's so princely, Kimi says, and Yuki looks away, sort of disheartened. I'm not like that, he says. Kimi says he's so humble, and Machi reacts as if she's about to speak, but isn't able to say anything. Yuki suddenly remembers that he needs to go to his class meeting, but he starts to say, and then Kakeru says, for now, Machi has me to fall back on, right? I wonder if you being around has ever helped anything, Nao says. And in the next panel, we see that Kakeru has karate chopped him and asks Yuki what the class is discussing. And Yuki says it's the cultural festival. Kimi says, oh, speaking of, Yu's class was chosen to do a play, right? And we transition away to class 2D, where the kids are tallying the votes for their roles in their play, Cinderella. Tohru says, it'll be a wonderful performance, right, Uo-chan? Hana-chan. But one look over at Uo reveals that she's being an ultra grump about the play. I want to do a historical play, Uo says. Mito Komon was also on the list too, wasn't it? I wanted to be the guy who gives him the medicine box. Oh, you mean Suke-san, right? Tohru says. I mean, Cinderella? What the hell? Uo adds while Hana combs her hair. I thought we were in high school. Did you want to give him the medicine box that much, Arisa? Hana asks. Yuki arrives as they tally the votes for roles, and some girls wish that he hadn't turned down the role of prince. Yuki apologizes and says that he has a lot to do with the student council. Besides, he says, I'm not fit to be Prince Charming. That's not true, a gaggle of starry-eyed girls all think in the background. Since Yuki sits in time, he gets the honor of writing who will be the main roles on the board, and as the class representative explains that there will be other votes for the set designers and crew. Much to the surprise of students, Yuki writes Cinderella, Saki Hanajima, Prince Charming, Kyo-soma, stepmother, Minami Kinoshita, stepsister, Tohru Honda, fairy godmother, Yuki Soma. Now wait just a minute, Kyo shouts, and Yuki's like, no takebacks. Can I just say, I've read this before, obviously, but when I was reading it this time, as soon as he revealed this, I also cackled. Like, it was so great. Anyway.
I just love him kind of like looking surprised at the paper and then just kind of being like, all right, and writing it down.
Yes. Yeah, it's great. There's a little, like, expression of him just being like, okay, and then he writes them on the board, and then Kyo freaks out, and then he immediately yells at Kyo. It's so good. Kyo's two friends are like, what's wrong, Prince Kyo? You'll look great in a crown, Prince Kyo. We'll get a laugh out of it, Uo adds, and Kyo's like, we don't need people to laugh at this story. Tohru blushes and says it's wonderful, and that Shisha will be thrilled, and Kyo's like, don't tell him. Whatever you do, don't tell him. And there's a little chibi Tohru with a tear in her eye thinking, but he would be so happy. Kyo continues his campaign against the casting by pointing out that it's already screwed up by having Hanajima as the main character. Treat me gently, your highness, Hana says, smiling coyly. She's wicked, the class thinks. This is the moment the wicked Cinderella is born. Will Cinderella's dress be black after all? Yuki asks if Tohru will be alright playing a cruel stepsister. Of course! I'll show you a cruelty deeper than the ocean, Tohru says, bubbly as ever. She'll never pull it off, Yuki thinks. It's so good. We cut away to some of the Yuki fangirls reveling in their victory because they conspired to get Tohru in a hated role. But of course, one points out that Minami, who is in the Prince Yuki fan club, is equally bad in an evil stepmother role, and she covers her eyes and thinks, curse comes home to roost. With the chaos settled, it's a wrap for the class meeting, so Yuki returns to the student council. Toru's about to tell him not to push himself too hard, but instead says, do your best, and smiles brightly as he leaves. The group calls Tohru back, and Yuki takes note of her talking to Kyo. As he leaves, he remembers Shigure saying, the important thing is, will you always go crying to her? In the student council room, he finds Kimi and Nao. It turns out that Machi and Kakeru have gone out to buy something. Kimi comments on how Machi and Kakeru seem close, and Yuki realizes they must not have told anyone else that they're related yet. Nao asks Yuki to find a list of things they're ordering, so Yuki goes to look for it. I wonder if I left it in the room next door, he says, wandering in. Yun, you better not go in there, Kimi says. But the door slams behind Yuki, and from the other side she finishes, the lock's been broken since yesterday. No, Yun, Kimi tried to tell you, she shouts, and Nao is like, you told him too late. The lights are also not working, apparently, and Yuki asks if he can kick down the door, but Nao tells him not to because he doesn't want there to be any more damage to the school. I put an eye-rolling emoji in my notes. I don't know if you can see it. So he and Kimi decide to go get help.
Like how Yuki's just like, can I kick it down? Like, that's like an easy and obvious solution.
Yeah.
It's like, only for
it is
you.
For him. Yeah, exactly. Now it's like, no, I don't want there to be any more damage. And it's like, bro, like, he's stuck in a room. Anyway, Yuki sighs and thinks, this is pathetic. If I was really princely, I wouldn't have been so stupid as to get myself locked in, that's for sure. He stumbles around trying to find a light switch to see if it's, truly broken, and knocks over a can of paint that splatters across a wall. Why is there paint in here? And it's black, he says, and he looks down at the paint splattered on his hand. Black, he remembers, and then suddenly remembers Akito at the beach, smiling a sadistic smile. You're pathetic, aren't you, Yuki? Akito says in the memory. Watching you try to keep up the facade of optimism, it hurts. A lot. I know, Akito says. I understand what you want, what you're searching for in Tohru Honda. I know what you're looking for in her. You're so freaking annoying. In this situation, saving lives comes first. Understand, Chibisuke? We hear from Kakeru argue with Nao outside of the storage room. Yuki's still lost in his thoughts as he continues to remember the moment with Akito. Nao shouts, Kuragi, what are you? And then with a smash, Machi breaks down the door with a chair. Yuki looks over at her from the darkness, and she makes eye contact with him, which is very unusual, I noticed. Are you alright? She asks. Outside, Kimi laughs about the door, and Kakeru whines that he was the one who wanted to break it, and Nao insists this isn't something to laugh at or be jealous about. Kakeru looks in and says Yuki looks dazed, and says that Yuki says maybe it was the paint fumes. Yuki thanks Machi. I thought you wouldn't like being alone and helpless in there, she says quietly. Kimi tells him to wash the paint off, and Yuki's eyes widen suddenly, and he covers his mouth. I'm gonna throw up, he says, while the other kids freak out. Outside, Yuki sits down and Kakeru sits with him and confirms that he doesn't need to go to the nurse. Yuki says that he'll be fine if he gets some fresh air. And Kakeru says it makes sense. Of course you'd get sick in a small room with paint fumes. It's not that, Yuki says. I remembered something painful. Something painful? Kakeru asks. Something painful, Yuki says. Oh my god, no way, Yun! Something dirty? Kakeru asks, eyes sparkling. No, I meant emotionally painful, Yuki says. So what is it? Kakeru asks. I'm stupid, so if you make something up, I won't know the difference. What's the point in cheating a confession? Yuki asks. And he looks down, and Kakeru looks over. I haven't told anyone about this before, Yuki says. I haven't even told the person involved. It's something pitiful and pathetic. He thinks, remembering Tohru smiling, I was looking for a mother in her. That's the end!
Dun, dun, dun.
It's the end of this chapter! Yes! Dun dun dun! That's right! Wow, so many things happened in these 2 chapters.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it.
Everything's moving.
It is, yeah. It was a good time. And by good, I mean awful.
Yeah. There were some good times thrown in.
Yeah, for sure.
We broke down a door. It was fun.
Yeah, Machi broke down a door. Her destructive skills came in handy this time.
After 2 separate people wanted to break down the door. But
Yes. Yuki and Kakeru,
Yeah.
and I guess Machi.
Yep.
Now couldn't win against all 3 of them.
Nope.
Okay, I don't know where to start. There's so many things that happened.
Let's see.
Well, I have some thoughts that kind of apply to both chapters before we start on specific things.
Okay.
So, I think one thing that's interesting is that there are a lot of callbacks to, like, past chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one for chapter 15, which was Tohru thinking about Kyo. Remembering Kyo.
Might be the biggest gap in a flashback that we've
Yeah.
seen to, like, an actual thing we've seen before.
Probably. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I also think it's funny that since it's Kyo from behind, they didn't have to blur it. She didn't have to blur it to hide the change in her art style.
Yeah. It's different. It's actually not... I think it's redrawn. Because I looked back at that time, like that chapter, and there isn't a shot that looks like that.
Mm.
I didn't bring that one with me in all the books that I brought. Sorry. But yeah, I looked at it to see if it was like a copied like thing, and it looks like it's redrawn.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it doesn't have to be blurred for whatever reason, regardless. And then there was chapters 58 and 59, so that's the beach. So what happens is this memory that Yuki has in the room is what happened. So we saw this scene at the beach where Yuki sees Kureno and then he talks to Akito, and then nothing else happens. It's like you don't see their dialogue at all. And then Tohru runs into Yuki later.
Yeah,
so.
We saw him react to whatever he said with Akito. It was obviously something that had a big effect on him, but we didn't actually see the dialogue at the time.
And now we get to see it.
Even now we don't see all of it.
I seriously doubt that that's all of it, but that's part of it, right? So, apparently part of what Akito said. Or maybe he's just imagining it. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but it seems to be a memory, and it seems to be Akito saying that he knows what Yuki is looking for in Tohru.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So we didn't get to see that before. Now we finally get to see it. And then I think it took me a long time because I couldn't tell who was in Tohru's memory. So when Rin says, when Rin is like, what's the most important thing to you? Tohru pauses and she remembers someone, and I think it's Akito. And I'm pretty sure it's from chapter 64 and 65, which is also the beach. You know, where she was talking to Akito. Because I was like, when would she have looked up at Akito like that? I think it's the time when Akito told her that Kyo would be confined. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think so.
That's the time that I think it is. Yeah. At first I thought it was somebody else. But I think it's Akito. I don't know who else it could be. It's so hard to tell, too, because it's, like, just the eyes.
Yeah, I didn't really have any doubts that it's Akito, just because, like, Akito's always drawn like that, with the black hair in front of his eyes, and the really narrow...
And also kind of, narrow eyes.
Narrow eyes like that. But yeah, I couldn't remember exactly where it was, but yeah, that makes sense, I think.
Yes, and I also think it's just the only time that Tohru is in that kind of position with Akito, where they're sort of, like, face-to-face.
Yeah, they've only met, like...
Twice?
Yeah.
I think. Just that time and then the time at school. And it doesn't really make sense to be Yuki because we haven't seen... Because basically she was, like, kind of defending Yuki that one time.
Yeah, and she didn't really, like,
school.
have that kind of face-to-face
No, she kind of, like, looked down, I think.
Yeah, because, like, when Akito was talking directly to Tohru, he was being, like, fake friendly, so he didn't really have that, like, narrow-eyed evil expression.
No.
At that time, and then, like, after that, he was mostly talking to Yuki, so.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And also, I think that this highlights the conflict that we're seeing now between her feelings about Kyo and her mother. And the reason I think that is because also in that, before that happened, she was thinking about her mother at the beach too. So it was something that kind of, like, was going on at that time as well.
Yeah.
And then we see in this, she has the dream about her mother the day that her mother died. And because all of those things are sort of presented together, I think that that's the conflict that's being demonstrated by Takaya.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what I think about that. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's obvious that she has growing feelings for Kyo, and obvious that she cares a lot about her mother still. But she seems to be struggling with the idea of them together.
Yeah, she's had some, like, internal crises about both of these situations separately and together in the past, so.
So, I think that is what is being shown in that scene. That's why I think it's that specific time that she's thinking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There's a lot of episodes. There's a lot of episodes. There's a lot of, like, pieces that were brought back here, which I thought was really interesting. Especially the one with Kyo.
Yeah. Even the, like, Kureno stuff has got a flashback, too.
And a flashback to Shisho. Like, when she talked to Shisho. Yeah, that's right. And then stuff with Kureno. I think we can also start by saying that we learned some more things about the curse.
Yeah, we got another
So maybe it's time for a recap.
We got another kind of retelling / explanation of the Zodiac myth in this chapter.
From Rin.
Yep.
Just to remind everyone, you know, when people in Soma family are hugged by members of the opposite sex, they turn into animals, in case you forgot.
It has been a little while.
It has. None of them have been animals in such a long time. I mean, the focus is on other things, but...
Yeah, I think the last time was maybe Momiji at the beach.
Maybe... Well, Rin was a horse.
Oh, yeah, Rin, but that she wasn't from hugging.
Yes.
It's from exhaustion.
Yeah, always. Well, like, we saw that the cat came to Kyo during the school trip, which is kind of related. They're all related. We also learned during the beach arc that Akito, and it was brought back here in this discussion with Rin, that Akito says that he's God, and that's why, I think we learned in the conversation with Shisho, that's why the Junichi feel like they can't go against what Akito says. And then Rin added on to it this time by saying that it feels like a long time ago, the spirits of the zodiac animals made a promise to God that they would always come back to God, and they would always be together. And that promise is a bond. It may look like enticing from the outside, but if you're not into it, then it's a shackle. So yeah, that's what we learned this time about the curse.
And we've had the implication about, like, the bond becoming the curse in the past, but this is the first time we've had the whole idea of, like, the spirits made a promise to God to always be together.
Yeah, I think that's the major development. There was a lot of things. I feel like we could have had an episode all about just that one chapter, actually, because there's so many things that happen.
Should we talk about Tohru and Rin, since they kind of made up the bulk of it?
Yes, let's do it. Yes. I'm so excited. Yeah, let's talk about them first. Let's you start by talking about them first.
Well, one thought I had, like, right at the start of, like, their interactions is when Tohru's remembering Rin clinging to her after the previous chapters. I can't remember which chapter it ended on that, but that her thoughts are, like, really similar to Rin's thoughts in that moment, where Tohru says, like, she felt like she's pathetic and all she could do was, like, hold her in return and wanted to do more, and, like, Rin was feeling the same way, that, like, she felt pathetic for having to, like, cling to someone and be a burden onto someone.
Right.
So. Yeah,
you're right. That's a good point.
Like, when I first read those flashback, like, panels, I was like, wait, is this Tohru or Rin narrating?
That's a good point. They say very similar things about each other. Tohru, they do it in this chapter too, because I think Tohru at the beginning is like, she was alone, and I get the feeling she's been, like, carrying these burdens all alone all this time. Or whatever. And then at the very end of the chapter, Rin is like, yeah, I think that Tohru has some problems too. And that she's keeping to herself. She said specifically, hold on, wait, I'll find it. Rin says it in a much more eloquent way than I did. She says, like, I feel like on the other side of that door, I'm afraid that Tohru is starting to fall apart. And if that happens, no one can bring her back. And says, I hope that she can find the right person for her, like Haru's there for me, someone who will gently open that door.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was very interesting. They have, so they feel the same things about each other, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think from a, you know, what is it? You know, like a third person narrator observation perspective, we can see that they do have similar problems. Like Rin has been trying to deal with things by herself, and it seems like now we're finally seeing Toru's been trying to deal with the pain that she has from the loss of her mother by herself all this time.
Mm-hmm.
Or not dealing with it, really.
Yeah.
Most of this time. But it's starting to catch up with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, otherwise they're bonding in this chapter.
Tohru made her jelly.
Mm-hmm. And she ate it.
Also, and she ate it! I know! She did say that she doesn't want to eat around other people. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that was kind of confirmed. I think we had talked about that before.
Yeah, she's got a lot of issues around food and eating.
Yeah, it seems like.
Yeah, and it's one thing that shows like how close she was with Haru, because we've seen in flashbacks that she was eating with Haru.
Yeah, Haru brought her snacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Tohru was like, it's so presumptuous. It was presumptuous of me, but I made you food, and like she's like, I wish I could do more, and it's like, you're doing enough.
Yeah,
you let her cry on you.
Like
you're doing enough.
Like how she made like so much gelatin apparently.
Maybe she made a bunch of different flavors.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she was like, I don't know what Rin likes. I don't know what Susan likes, so I'm going to make like...
It's like, I can't make half batches. I have to make the entire batch of all of these
Do
flavors.
you think she just used the mix? Or do you think she like made it from scratch because she's Tohru?
I don't know the state of Jell-O in Japan.
So. I don't know. But yeah, I love how Shigure is like, I'll have one, and then like immediately eats it, and Yuki and Kyo sass him. So one of them sasses him. The scene, actually, I find that scene to be kind of interesting. It's sort of, I think it's related to Rin, so I think we can talk about it. But basically, Shigure is like, oh, I'm sorry for getting you involved with her drama. Mm-hmm. And then Yuki and Kyo act like nothing is happening. And then Tohru is like, no, that's not it at all. Like, it's not how I feel at all. And they kind of look back at her like, what the hell? Like, it's really...
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. So, like, it doesn't seem like something that she wouldn't normally do. Like, I'm a little bit... confused as to why they kind of looked back like that. So it must have been kind of an outburst. That's the way that I'm choosing to interpret it.
Yeah, it seems like
it was out of the ordinary.
Yeah, it seems like there's a kind of a pause between what he said and her like suddenly reacting to it, because like there's enough time for the little panel of someone sassing him about starting to eat the Jell-O already.
Her face. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
maybe it's just the time, but it seems to be. They react like it's something out of character.
Yeah, I think it's just the pause and sudden like vehemence of the answer.
Yeah. I guess maybe because they didn't see what she saw. Like maybe because Tohru saw Rin freaking out, and none of the others saw that. They just saw that she was sick. So maybe they're just kind of like, yeah, she's just sick again. Like it's not really a big deal. But Tohru sees something about Rin that nobody else really knows about other than like Haru, I guess. Because I feel like she reacts like that because she's like, no, it's fine. I want to, Rin seems to be dealing with something, and I want to like find a way to help her.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought that just a little scene was also kind of interesting, the way that they react to her reaction. I feel like Rin and Tohru do have a partnership that's blooming, even though Rin is against it.
Yeah, well, this is kind of like the most like normal, friendly interaction we've seen Rin have, like in the present tense, like.
Yeah, so far.
Like, even if she's like a little like snippy toward Tohru for a couple of things, she's still like, goes out and goes on a walk with her and tells her what she knows about the curse and everything, and then like scolds her for trying to run in and do things by herself and put herself at risk and stuff.
And I think it's cute. Rin tried her routine of being like, she rejected everything Tohru did. Like she was like, oh, you came again, and like you made Jell-O. That's stupid. And then like she said something else, and it's like I was reading this and I was like, man, it's a good thing that Tohru is like not stirred by someone being an asshole. Yeah. Like she's not going to be deterred, right? It's like Rin's routine doesn't work on Tohru, which is really funny and cute.
Yeah,
and yeah, you're right. Rin scolds Tohru for wanting to rush in and do things, and then Tohru's like, well, you don't work too hard by yourself, as well.
Yeah, it seems like kind of another instance of a character partially yelling at themselves when they're yelling at someone else, because she has to don't go rushing in by yourself. Do you honestly think you'll break anything being like that? And then she kind of looks away and has a silent panel,
It's like, oh wait, that's
just
actually
like
I've
been doing.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of times in both of these chapters, I think, where people are like, don't do this thing, but they're really talking about something that they've done.
Yeah.
I don't know, they just have a good friendship. You can tell they're going to have a good friendship. You know when you meet somebody and you want to be friends with them. It's like, Toru's like, oh my god,
you see someone through the bushes and you want to run out and cry on their lap,
normal friend stuff. Oh, Kayla. That was a good joke. I liked it. That's how everybody makes friends, right?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
That's how I've made all my friends.
You watch someone that you don't know very well have a complete mental breakdown in your living room after they barf everywhere. It's completely normal. Everything's fine. All right. Yes. But yeah, I think that Rin seems to understand something about Tohru that other people don't necessarily, at least haven't talked about yet, whether they notice it or not. So people like Yuki, he kind of admits to constantly relying on Tohru, and Kyo, of course, I think is he's able to be more supportive of her, but neither of them we haven't seen any of their thoughts be like, yeah, there's something going on with her, whereas Rin is like, there's something going on with Tohru.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and we've seen way back in early chapters about characters saying oh, we didn't realize she had all this pain inside because she seems so cheerful on the outside, and Rin's able to see through that really quickly because she obviously recognizes something there.
Because she felt it herself, I guess.
That she understands.
Yeah. It also reminded me of, it's not super related, but it reminded me of Mayuko being like, don't put too much on her. Maybe Mayuko sees that too. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, even people like Kyo are obviously able to go and diffuse things when Toru's upset about something that's going on kind of in the present. But nobody else other than Rin, has really tapped into this idea that there's something more going on, that she's,
yeah,
there's
she's
something
on the edge of a mental breakdown.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
As it turns out. She's like, yeah, I think that something bad might happen if she isn't able to work through this pain that she's having. So yeah, very interesting. An interesting and subtle reveal at the end of that chapter.
Seriously, speaking of mental breakdowns, how about that dream she has?
Yeah, how about oh right. Yeah, that's right. Man. That really we're chuckling, but it made me really upset when I read through it this time. And it was funny because 2 days before, there was a post going around Tumblr that was one of the extras from the DVD where something similar happens, where she wakes up and imagines her mother. And I remember I texted you and I was like, huh, I'm dead now. Why is this happening? Why did Takaya draw this? And then we read this and I was like, oh no, it's happening again. Yeah, it's really sad. It's so sad. The saddest part, I think, is when she opens the door. She wakes up. She fully wakes up. It's she's kind of half asleep. You know when you have a nightmare and you're kind of not fully awake yet?
Yeah.
And she kind of walks over to the door and opens it, and then she calls for her mom. But it's in Shigure's house, and she just sees the hallway, and she just kind of closes the door.
That dead-eyed look on her face as she closes the door.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, oh, my heart. I was really, really sad this time.
This is another thing to add to her pile of empty hallways and closing doors imagery that seems to always be around Tohru's mom memories.
Yeah, you're right. There's one that I'm thinking of where she's in the apartment. It's empty. That was when she visited her grandfather, I think. And then the one, I don't know, the way that they used it in the anime specifically, I think more so when she says goodbye to them and the door closes during New Year's and stuff like that. They actually had a really similar scene in the anime to this as well, where she remembers her mom she's in the kitchen and then she looks over and remembers her mom being there, I think. I haven't seen it, I watched it in a long time, but
yeah,
there was that scene as well. I don't think, the only memories that we've seen of her mom, so we've seen a couple of times where she remembered, I was looking for something else, so I ended up looking through a bunch of the volumes this time while I was preparing. And there's like the scenes from when Momiji talks about his mom and like his backstory. And there's some memories of her mom in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But there's never really one like this where her mom is kind of like around and like in kind of her, like embedded in her real current life.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just like kind of one-off memories or something where she gives some advice or whatever, but we don't really see like these memories like this with Tohru. I think this is the first time.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting how that memory ends with the like dark dialogue box. This is always together. It's just the same phrasing that was used in the description of the bond/curse in the conversation with Rin earlier.
I have a note that says Tohru's bond versus the Soma bond because I think it's what's happening here and the reason that it's contrasted. It happens after this. It seems this she remembers her mom because this kind of happens after Rin asks her what the most important thing is to her.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously she's used to the idea that she thinks that the most important thing to her is her mother. But then like what she remembers, she remembers Akito from the beach talking about Kyo. And I think we're starting to see more and more the idea of her mom being most important or Kyo being most important kind of competing inside of her.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can say that it kind of contrasts. There's something that Takaya is trying to say about Toru's bond with her mother versus the Soma bond. And I think we've seen it in a couple of times. So this time, and then also specifically when she was talking to Shisho. Remember Shisho was like, it's a bond, and Tohru said a bond is something sacred, and she remembers her mother. So I think we've seen enough of that idea that we can say that it's something that Takaya is building toward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like at this point there's some explicit connection being drawn there. Like it's been like hinted at before, but I think the use of that, the always together, right over top of that, right after we had that conversation, makes it pretty explicit.
I think so. So, I mean, so what we've seen so far is, like, the curse is a bond and the curse is a burden. There's these two ideas that are, like, so therefore a bond is a burden, right? A bond is something sacred and it can be a burden.
Yeah.
Depending on how you feel about it.
Yeah, like where she says, like, basically, like, a bond, like, if those involved see it as a burden because it's nothing but a shackle. So,
yeah.
Seems like kind of a fine line, maybe.
It seems like that's the idea, right? So Tohru has presented her relationship with her mother thus far as being very important and meaningful to her, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's changing. I wonder if that's what Takaya is trying to talk about. That maybe the idea that someone is so important to you that nothing else can be important to you can also be a burden.
Yeah, or just that something that used to be a completely positive thing can maybe turn into something else if it's like causing you this kind of distress.
Yeah. We've probably seen other things in the series that are like around similar ideas. Like we've seen all these different things of relationships and things that change and become bad. Like even with someone like Uo and the gang. Like she felt like it was something that she fit into, but then later it became, she started to recognize that it wasn't really what she wanted.
Yeah. And even like you can kind of say like Hattori and Kana, where that was, a big positive thing for them, but then, like, when the guilt and memories started to destroy Kana, so it's like all those happy memories and positive bond starts to become something that she, like, literally can't live with anymore.
Yeah. Even something like, you could maybe stretch it to something like Momiji's mother, people having a bond between a mother and a child is something that I think is represented in a positive way most of the time, but in this case it became also something so painful that she couldn't bear it. She couldn't bear the responsibility or like the idea that she had, brought a weak creature that turns into an animal into the world. And that became something that, as opposed to being a sort of like loving relationship, became a unbearable relationship.
Yeah.
I feel like this is like one of the real like core, it's like maybe the core idea of Fruits Basket. It's the thing that makes Tohru and the Somas, it's the thing that ties them together. There's no reason in this story like to have Tohru be around. Like this could just be a thing about characters overcoming the curse, but Tohru gets something out of being in this relationship with the Somas too. She also is able to kind of grow out of the maybe through the bonds that she formed with them, just like we're seeing characters from the Junichi drift away from Akito, like people like Yuki and Haru. Like we talked about it a lot in the beach arc, the way that they're not so, it doesn't seem like they're so under Akito's thumb anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is something that will happen to Tohru as well. Like maybe that's a prediction for the future, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe things will change more for her.
Yeah. I think more generally a big theme of the series overall is just the, how, like, relationships and bonds can be, positive and negative and switch between the two and everything.
Yeah.
See Feather Theory.
Yeah. Feather Theory. There's some petals in this, I noticed, not to bring it back.
Yeah.
There were some white petals, actually. It was like of the Rin, where Rin is... Tohru thinks about Rin and Kyo.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, I'll remember to talk to Kayla about this. But that's what I think is kind of going on. That's why we have these... It's time to develop this part of Tohru's character, I think, in the story. We're like 2/3 of the way through the story or something.
Yeah, well, we've seen it. Yeah, we've seen it creep in here and there. This is just, I think, the most explicit it's gotten.
Mm-hmm. I think it's, the most obvious about how the fact that they're related, not just that they both bonds kind of exist, that they can be thought of similarly.
Yeah, because I think, like, back at the, like, beginning of the beach is when we were first starting to see Tohru have some, like, internal crisis about her relationship with her mother in some way. Mm-hmm. We had her have that, like nighttime, like, freak out when she was looking at the photo of her mother.
Yeah. And then, like, a chapter later, Akito comes and tells her about Kyo, too. So, yeah.
So, yeah, it's been creeping along in the background. It's just, like, now it's starting to get more focus.
Yeah.
Be more explicitly, like, talked about.
Yes, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was exciting, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. By that, I mean sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Mm-hmm.
Is that everything that we can say about that chapter? About Rin and Tohru and the curse and Tohru's relationship with her mom? Probably.
That's the big stuff.
So should we talk about the next chapter then?
Seems logical.
There was more fun stuff in this chapter.
Yeah. We got some student council shenanigans mixed in.
Yeah. Oh, and also the school play.
Yeah.
I like that Kyo tries to argue that it's not good casting.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of amusing that the Yuki fangirls were like, we'll cast Tohru in a hated role, and then I can't wait to see her be, like, hated by everyone. It's like, you're so weird. Like, it's just a play. Anyway.
It's like, if anything, everyone's going to find it endearing how not evil she is in the evil role.
Yes, yeah. I like how Yuki's like, can you be a cruel stepsister? And she's like, I'll be the cruelest ever.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Like,
Everybody believes you.
Yeah, like, the font even changes to show how bubbly her dialogue is in that scene.
It was the most bubbly expression that we've ever seen, I think. Yeah. I stand by what I said. There have been some, but this was the bubbliest.
Mm-hmm. I also like
I like how the friends tease Kyo, too.
Yeah. Yeah, the friends tease him. And I like how they, like, get Tohru to talk to him, to, like, talk him into it.
Yeah. They're like, come on, like, go, you deal with it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Yuki just watching the two of them in these chapters.
Mm-hmm.
I also loved how everybody's like, hey, I heard we're doing this crazy thing for the culture festival. And of course, it turned out that Kakeru was spreading the rumors.
Yeah.
Even Tohru knew about it.
Yeah. I have to say that Yuki one-handed strangling Kakeru with the, like, brightest smile on his face with sparkles in the background is one of my favorite panels in the series.
It was pretty great. You're not wrong. I have a note that I wanted to say, which is that we talked about culture festivals in school, I think, in episode 5, which was on chapters 9 and 10. Mm-hmm. And I just double-checked it to listen to it. Also, that's when the origin of parrot fortune-telling came about.
Oh my god.
In our series, at least, not in the world.
Yes. That's when it spontaneously came into being.
Yeah. We invented it.
Yeah, that was when Hana was, like, randomly dressed as a witch.
Yeah, we talked about it for, like, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was pretty great. I also liked how Kyo was like, don't tell Shisho, and Toru's like, but he would want to know.
Yeah.
It was very cute.
I think he'd be so happy. And he would.
Yeah. Yeah, he would. He would be like, if there was a way, he would wear, like, a Kyo, like, #1 fan shirt when at the play. Mm-hmm. Anyway, okay, so one other thing. Okay, so we talked about their class. That's fine. Great. Everything was cute. Machi came back after the incident where she tore up the student council room. So I guess this is the first time that she's been back,
Apparently.
according to what Kimi says. And now, of course, demands that she explain herself, and she just tries to apologize. And then Yuki is like, no, we need to understand why there's a problem. And then the whole conversation gets derailed by Kakeru and Kimi talking about Yuki.
Yeah.
I don't have anything like significant to say about it, but just the way we get to see some more of Machi's reactions this time.
She actually talks a little in this chapter.
She does. Yeah, she doesn't just stand there and not say anything. Although I think it's not that she doesn't say anything, it's just that she can't get a word in around Kakeru and Kimi. Yeah. It doesn't have anything to do with her. It has everything to do with Kakeru and Kimi. I think.
Yeah. Though we do see, panels of her just trying to, like, slide away in the background, so.
Yeah. Yeah, often. But yeah, I like that she's the one who breaks down the door when Yuki is trapped, too.
Yeah.
I guess we should talk about Yuki getting trapped. Yeah. That would be important. No big deal. Just,
Yeah. Just some emotional trauma coming out to play.
Yeah, no big. So Yuki has this memory, it seems to be a memory of Akito at the beach. And like we discussed, I think we discussed it right away. I'm sorry if we're repeating this, but we got to finally see what that was that happened, or at least part of what happened. So yeah. I was excited about that.
There's enough water textures over all these panels to conclude that it's at the beach, I think.
Well, it's also what Akito's wearing. Akito's wearing like a black shirt, and Yuki's wearing his shirt from the beach. I was like, didn't Yuki wear that shirt from the beach even before there was a bunch of water texture? Yeah. Just in case you forgot. But yeah, it turned out that Akito was saying, I know what you were looking for in Tohru, which is really interesting. Does Akito actually know that he was looking for a quote-unquote mother in her, as he said at the end of this chapter? Or is it something else?
Yeah, no, I'd have to look back and see, like, Akito's dialogue surrounding this part on the beach. He was kind of...
Let me find it for you.
I think he was kind of, like, directly comparing, like, Yuki's feelings to Kyo's feelings in some way. I think I remember him doing that.
So this is the context that this is in. So it's in whatever chapter I said before. Hold on, let me find it. Chapter 59 starts with Yuki's kind of like inner monologue while Akito talks to him. So Yuki says, I want to believe that my hopes aren't for nothing. I want to believe there's more to life than darkness. Just like if I'm pelted with rain, I know the sun will come again, no matter how much I'm knocked down by pain. Kindness has continued to fall down on me ever since that day. And then he has a memory of putting the hat on baby Tohru. And then it transitions to another scene. So we don't actually see Akito's only dialogue is like, hello there, you're so lonely. And then we see Akito talking to Yuki and Yuki looking upset. But there's none of Akito's dialogue.
Yeah, I think I'm just kind of thinking of, like, the context of, like, how direct he, like, plays on Kyo's feelings for Tohru when he talks to Kyo. And then, like, the fact that, like, we knew back then that what Yuki was struggling with. And so there's lots of, like Tohru as a mother imagery compared to the relationship of Kyo and Tohru, especially from Yuki's point of view at that time.
Yeah, like I'm looking ahead in the chapter where Kyo goes to visit Akito. So anyway, the point is, after reading all of that, I don't see anything specific, but I think you're right that like kind of the way that the things that Yuki and Kyo say, sort of make it seem different, and the kind of like the way that Yuki reacts to what Akito says, because what happens is Yuki goes and talks to her. Tohru and Yuki run into each other, and at the time it seemed sort of like it was obfuscated the way that he felt, like it could be romantic or it could not be. But it doesn't seem like that's the case.
Yeah.
Based on what he said this time. And I think I don't know what Akito said. What Akito said that he's looking for in Tohru.
Yeah.
Akito's good at doing some things, but it seems like, if you compare like Akito to somebody like Rin, I think Rin knows what actually bothers people. I think Akito has a story about what Akito thinks bothers people.
Yeah, and I think Akito's good at being like hurtfully vague in what he says. Like, just kind of like knowing that there's some kind of trauma or issue around this point, and so like bringing up enough for them to kind of fill in the blanks themselves with all the hurtful details. So like I feel like he probably never actually completed that sentence. He just probably said like, I know what you're looking for in her, and didn't actually say anything more.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. if it is something like a mother, I mean, we know that Yuki's parents just, like, abandoned him with Akito. Yeah. And Akito obviously knows that. So Yuki says, I mean, Akito says that Yuki is boring. Like, his kind of, you know, Akito has, like, kind of a story that he uses with all of them. Like, Haru is stupid, Rin isn't wanted, Yuki is boring. Like, Yuki wants to be in a place where people recognize his kind of, like, you know, our people are kind and recognize what value he has, right?
Yeah.
And so when Akito just says, like, you're boring, he translates that as, like, I'm not worthy of people's attention. So maybe Akito being like, I know what you're looking for in Tohru is like, I know you're looking for someone who will care about you when you don't deserve to be cared about, maybe. By anybody other than me. It's kind of interesting that Yuki has this memory at this time, too, because there's all this talk, again, about him being, like, all princely and whatever, and everybody seems to be bringing it up this chapter. Like, sometimes we'll go for, like, a volume without anybody calling Yuki a prince for a while, but then it comes up and he's like, no, that's not me, that's not me. He says it, like, 3 times in this chapter. Yeah. So I think that all is part of his, you know, issues of not feeling like he's worthy of people's attention, or that he's, like, a bad guy deep down inside, or whatever, that he's not adequate. Like what he says when he opens the student council, that kind of speech that he gives. So, but I thought it was interesting to shift away from that depressing note. I thought it was interesting that Kakeru and Kimi were like, wow, you're so kind, because I think that that's true, and I think we've seen it a lot. People always talk about how kind Yuki is, like Haru and Tohru, and it's nice that Kakeru and Kimi also called that out, even in their, like, teasy way. But they're like, we're not teasing, but, you know.
Yeah. And it's kind of a contrast to all the previous, like, Prince Yuki references. They say he's princely because he's being kind, like, as opposed to just being, like, you know, having princely character and looking, you know, beautiful and
hot.
Distant and stuff, which seems to be the implications from the previous things, which is part of his objection to it.
Yeah. Like, I think the first introduction we get to Yuki, at least being, like, princely at school, is that he, like, pushed the girl away because he didn't know how to deal with her attention, of course. But I think, yeah, it is interesting and nice that Kakeru and Kimi, even though they were sort of, like, teasing him, called out that his kindness was what made him seem princely.
Yeah.
I guess. I'm intrigued by Machi's constant objection that he's not princely.
Yeah. This is kind of a thing, because, like, when we first saw Machi, like, before we knew who she was or saw her face or whatever, we saw her kind of, like, when they're talking about him being, like, known as the prince or whatever, and she's like, he doesn't seem that way, basically, at the time. And then, like, we see him, like, object to being called a prince, and her kind of, like, reacting to that in some way.
Yeah. I think it'll come back to. I don't know. I feel like I can understand at a certain, like, base level what she's talking about, but I'm interested to see this play out more. I'm excited to see it play out more. Because Machi doesn't seem to care. Machi, I think, recognized... I thought it was really interesting this time that Machi broke down the door and was like, I thought you would be uncomfortable being, like, alone and helpless in there. I wonder if it's something that she recognizes about him, or if she just... that's a way that she feels. Like, I wonder what's supposed to be in that... embedded in that comment. You know?
Yeah, my feeling is that it's, like, another sort of, like, we were talking about, like, Rin being able to recognize, like, Toru's pain because she has felt it herself. It seems like that kind of thing where she's able to recognize that in him, where someone else might not be able to because she has similar feelings.
Yeah, it seems like that might be the case.
Yeah.
I mean, Machi doesn't seem particularly empathetic, but we don't know that much about her because, like, most of the interactions that we have with other characters and her is, like, she's just sort of sidelined a lot at this point. This is probably, like, the first time there's, like, a major interaction with her.
Yeah, but it's just, like, such a specific thing to say, like, being alone and helpless in there, rather than just, like, oh, it's uncomfortable being stuck in a dark room, so I want to let you out.
Place.
It's like, yeah.
Or
it's
being
like,
alone, or being in the dark.
Yeah, it's just, I thought you would be uncomfortable being alone and helpless in there. Like,
yeah.
It's a very specific kind of feeling that most people wouldn't associate with just, like, being locked in a room for a couple minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows? It was probably like 2 seconds. It's probably 5 minutes, like, that he's locked in there and having this memory, right?
Yeah.
But, like, I think it says something about her, which is that she probably has felt the same way. Is there any other more specific things to say?
Well, I think we should talk more about it. We've got the big controversial mother reveal in this chapter.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I was wondering if we should talk about it next time, but we should talk about it now. Yeah. Both times.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it more next time, but just kind of the...
Yeah.
What's the concept?
It's controversial.
Yeah, I remember it being, like, pretty controversial at the time. And, like, I can definitely like, looking back at it, I can understand, like, if you were shipping that, how that would seem like kind of a, like, out of nowhere slap in the face.
Yeah.
But, like, now that we've reread it, I think it really is built up for a while.
Yeah. I remember reading, when we were rereading this, a couple, like, not in the last, like, I'm gonna say since even the true form.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a couple times after, but, like, definitely in the beginning, Yuki is really flirty with Tohru.
Mm-hmm.
I could see why you could, like, we talked about the reveals on the beach being, like, deliberately misleading almost, as, like, setting up, maybe not deliberately, but misleading in the sense that it sets up a love triangle that isn't actually a love triangle, I think.
Yeah, it's something where, like, I think if you don't know it's coming, it does seem like, on the surface, it does seem to come out of nowhere. Like, you're like, oh, it's been this love triangle thing the whole time. But it really hasn't been for a while.
No.
And I think we've seen a lot of, like, Yuki, like, kind of watching Tohru and Kyo and having, like, conflicted feelings. And
Yeah.
we've seen, like, some specific, like, motherly imagery from Tohru when Yuki's around and stuff.
Yeah, Yuki's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Even like I said at the beach, like, Yuki notices her taking care of the kids.
Yeah.
Yuki notices her kind of, like, cheering him on to go, like, she's always, the last couple of times they interacted, it was like, Yuki basically goes, I have to go to student council now, and Tohru is like, okay, do your best, or, like, see you soon, or, like, take care. Like, it's very much has the air of, like, a parent being like, okay, like, I know this is hard for you, but, like, do your, you know, you need to do your best,
like,
or don't push yourself too hard, or...
Yeah, and, like, like the kind of an interaction between, like, a parent and, like, a young adult child who is, you know, becoming independent and stuff. And so, like, because we've seen, like, even without the mother reveal, we've seen, like, Yuki thinking, like, he has to, like, stop leaning on Tohru and, like, be more independent and take risks and stuff.
Yeah, especially now, like, he brought back what Shigure said, which was, like, will you always go crying to her?
Mm-hmm.
Which sort of, like, thinking about her the way a mother supports their children.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of, like, an accepting moment for him, that chapter, and that particular reaction there, because, like, Shigure kind of said it to both Kyo and Yuki, but Kyo was like, what the fuck are you talking about? As a reaction. Basically, that's
Kyo's
how
like, I don't do that anymore.
That's how I read that face anyway, but Yuki had kind of a sort of, I don't know, resigned smile in reaction to that.
I think Yuki knows what... I interpreted it as, like, Yuki understanding... Shigure's kind of just, like, saying that. It's, like, kind of Yuki, kind of to Tohru, like, kind of to Rin, even though she's not really there to hear it. And, like, Yuki and Rin have kind of the same... Yuki has this, like, connection with Rin that we've seen a couple of times.
Yeah, we saw him, like, deliberately say it in those chapters where he's like, we have one thing in common, which is...
Oh, right, yeah. We should talk about that.
Yeah.
Because at first I was like, let's avoid talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the connection that they have is that they both need Tohru in the same way, which is that they need somebody that they can, like, talk to and depend on.
Yeah, a supportive, quote-unquote, mother figure.
Yeah, in a non-romantic way.
Yeah.
Even though I ship it.
I was going to say, unless you're, you know, writing your fanfics for it, which I'm all for.
That's fine.
Yep. Yuki, Tohru
it's not
shippers,
there.
Tohru shippers, everyone who's there, write your fanfic.
Yeah.
We're pro-shipping and pro-fanfic on this podcast, so...
Yeah, basically. But we're talking about the text. And the
text
text
says... don't let the canon beat you down, but...
The text says that they don't have a romantic relationship. And I think you're right, I agree with you. I think it's pretty obvious from... definitely, like, the beach on. There's even times when you look at something, it could go either way. Like, the scene that I was just talking about. Yuki has this moment where he leans on Tohru and he, like, cries on her, but it's not romantic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's touching.
Yeah.
They obviously care about each other. And I think he, like, kisses her forehead and stuff. Is that the same chapter? Yeah, I think it is. And then the next morning, Tohru is like, he says, like, if you want to forget that I kissed you, like, don't worry about it or whatever. And she's like, I won't forget it. Mm-hmm. So you could interpret it as, like, being kind of romantic, but it doesn't seem very romantic to me. It seems more like someone who is sort of, like, confused about their feelings.
Yeah. It's emotional and affectionate, but it's not necessarily romantic.
I think so.
Yeah. And yeah, we've talked about it. Like, I think this has been, like, going on since after the True Form arc. Because we talked about how, like Yuki has that whole chapter right afterward about how, like, seeing Tohru come back in the morning, like, carrying Kyo in cat form is kind of, like,
yeah,
triggered something weird in his head.
Yeah.
Or seeing her go off after him. I can't remember which one he specifically was talking about, but either way, like, seeing her...
It's one of those.
Yeah, seeing her in that, like, moment kind of, like, tweaked off something weird in his head, and he's been kind of dealing with that the whole time. That's when we first saw the whole, like, tightly closed lid metaphor start to come in.
Yeah, it was kind of, like, addressing... He also has all these, like... You can see that he's been struggling with it for a long time, too, because he has these, like, specific memories of, like, Kagura saying, you know, like, once I fall for him, I can't help it, and all this other stuff. Like, it's all tied together. I'm not sure exactly, you know, why he remembers that so strongly. It's like he sees it happening between Tohru and Kyo, I guess.
Yeah, I think that specific thing might be, like, him realizing, like, what, like, that kind of, like, romantic feelings aren't usually, like, that kind of logical and explainable, and he's been trying to deal with his feelings in, like, a logical way, I think. Mm-hmm. And so I think he may be realizing that, like, the fact that he's, like, going through it like this, trying to, like, break it down and stuff, maybe means he's not having that kind of
feeling,
like, romantic feelings compared to what he's seen.
Yeah, I agree that it's something about comparing his own feelings to, like, the way that other people describe romance. Yeah. Kagura and Kakeru later. Because later Kakeru's like, yeah, I love my girlfriend, she's great.
Yeah.
And Yuki's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know? And, like, they have all the, like, love confessions at the trip. I feel like, yeah, Yuki looks at their relationship in sort of like a logical way that it can be processed instead of, like, an illogical, like, feeling. And then you can contrast it with, like, Toru's feelings, for example, where she's like, I don't know why, but when Kyo says something, I get happy or sad. It's like I have this, like, a reaction to him that's just emotional at its kind of, like, base level and not logical, I guess. Something that she can't control, even, which I think is part of what the issues that we're seeing right now. Yeah. Of her versus her caring about her mother most versus, like, caring about somebody else, like Kyo. I understand that it was controversial, and people were sort of maybe confused at the way that it could be interpreted, or, like, you know, like felt like they didn't see it coming, or like it wasn't built up to, but I kind of think that it was. Yeah.
I think it was definitely built up. I just think I can see how, if you were just, you know, happily going along, reading the manga, shipping your ship, you could think, like, well, that was out of nowhere. What the hell?
What the fuck? But you would have to also deliberately ignore all the Toru-Kyo shipping. So.
Yeah. Like, I think it's been obvious since pretty early on that it was going to go more Kyo-Toru. Just, but I think you could still, like, maybe think, like, oh, it's just, like, the losing leg of a love triangle rather than it being, like, completely sunk as a romantic relationship in any way. Yeah.
Sunk as a ship, yes.
Yes. Yeah, because, I mean, I think everyone's, like, shipped to the thing that just didn't wind up canon, but that's different than the canon going, like, no, actually, they don't even think of each other that way at all and never have.
Yeah. So. Yeah, for sure.
Which, you know, it's rough. I've been there. But,
yeah. There's still, like, moments between characters where you can say, like, that's, like, a great moment, and you can cling to it. But I just, I mean, I see a lot of things, like, there's a lot of great touching, like, Yuki and Toru moments, but it does seem to always be one-sided. Like, it's Yuki telling Toru something or divulging something to Toru or asking, kind of, like, Toru is supporting him or giving him some kind of emotional comfort. It's never the other way around. Even at the beginning. He's never, like, he's never there when she's upset. The person who's always there is Kyo. Yeah. I don't know. Like, they have a relationship that I would think of as being a more, like, supportive romantic relationship where there's a kind of an equal give and take of support. Not so much in the beginning, but after the true form. I would say.
Yeah. It's a more, like, reciprocal kind of thing. Which isn't to say that the relationship Yuki and Toru have is bad. It's just a different kind of relationship.
For sure.
Like, no one has a totally equal give and take with every single person they know. You have different relationships with different people, and that's fine.
Yes. But like Yuki even says that himself. He's like, you always accepted me, you always, like, listened to me, and always supported me, and were always there for me, and without any reprimand or whatever. So he kind of, like, calls it out, recognizes it himself in his own dialogue, too. Yeah. And it's fine. It's not like she doesn't get anything from Yuki. Like, obviously they have a good relationship,
they have a good
and
friendship,
he helps her in other ways.
He cares about her. It's just a different kind of, like, emotional support. And
I think it's, like, the kind of person, like, I mean, you've probably had friends or people that you know where you're like, I know I feel uncomfortable like talking to this person about this thing because I know that they're dealing with other things, or like I know that they like I don't know, whatever, for whatever reason you don't feel comfortable with that. I feel like that's how Tohru and Yuki's relationship is. It's like they have a good relationship when there's like good stuff going on.
I was gonna say, like she doesn't doesn't really seek out emotional support from other people because that's just not the kind of person she is. And Kyo's just the kind of person who's more likely to go like, "What? Say it." So.
Yeah. Kyo is more likely to try to draw it out of her.
Yeah.
As opposed to Yuki, who's like, "Well, she's having a thing. I'm just gonna
where he
be over
he might
here,
feel like he's like overstepping. Well, if he were kind of gonna do the same kind of thing, so
yeah. The only person who's really stepped in to do anything for her so far is Machi, which is interesting. Where he's like, everybody stop picking on her. Like he kind of protects her. Like he recognizes something is going on with her.
Yeah.
And
which is part of his like emotional growth. Where like we've talked about like the student council being like his kind of like the next step after the emotional growth he achieved with his relationship with Tohru. Because like this is him. I mean, deliberately he was trying to be like more like put himself out there and take more risks by joining the student council, and just like from what we've seen, he seems to be like, you know, becoming more independent, growing emotionally, relying less on Tohru for support.
Yeah, it seems like that's the case.
So it seems like he's like maybe.
I mean, I agree.
Yeah, so it seems like he's like maybe more in a position to like offer support to someone else now.
Yeah, he has Toru's support. He has like Kakeru's support. We saw in this chapter that he's about to. He tells Kakeru that he remembered something painful, and he hasn't said exactly what it is yet. Like we're about to see that next time. Yeah. But he has someone who he can rely on, like Tohru, in kind of a supportive way. And Kakeru also in turn asks him things. He's like, I don't get, like, I don't understand people. I need help to understand what's going on or whatever. Yeah. A lot of the time. So they have a more reciprocal relationship too.
Yeah, like he's at the point now where he can, like, in his thoughts, like, give as much as he takes in a relationship now. So yeah, he's able to take support and give support in more equal measures, at least in his mind now.
Yeah, well, I don't think he even thinks so in his mind, because it seems like he doesn't even realize how.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I think
generous.
I'm just saying, like, I'm saying he like thinks of everything in like the give and take kind of way, like we've seen that.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. Is there anything other student council things?
I think so. Kimmy and Now are still Kimmy and Now.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I was just like, and Now complains. I'm sorry. I wonder if there's like any Now fans out there who are like, say his dialogue too, but I won't. I refuse unless it's actually interesting. Yeah. I liked how Yuki and Now were complaining though to each other. Yeah. That's funny.
I loved Kimmy just like bluntly says that like Machi was like avoiding consequences, and Yuki's like, Kimmy, you can't just say that.
Yeah, so good. It's true. I guess we already talked about the play. My very last note is the play. Yeah. Ua was so disgruntled about the play. We didn't talk about that. She's like, I wanted to do like whatever historical play. Yeah. There's a note, for your perusal, I have copied information about a drama of the same name. I don't know if the play is based on that, but
yeah, I saw that at the bottom. I was like, TLDR.
Yeah, basically, the TLDR is it's about about a specific high-ranking person in the specific, I think, Tokugawa shogunate or something. It's in the Edo period. It's a historical drama. Mm-hmm. And the character that Ua references, it poses as his grandson. He's some guy that traveled around with him. That's why I was looking up this long-ass description of this drama. Yeah. But yeah, she's like, I want to be the guy that gives him the medicine box. I was like, this is a very specific reference. In a very specific role. So you're like one person? Like, anyway.
Good Lord. So it says that the drama ran from 1969 to 2011.
Yes! And I was like, is this actually a play? I had tried to Google, like, the same title. It's Mito Komon. It seems to be that it was based off of novels and whatever, but, like, I don't know if there's just, like, a separate play, or the kids are expected to make a play about Mito Komon or something. Like, Maybe. It could be that. Yeah. I don't know. Because, I mean, obviously they're expected to make a play about Cinderella. Yeah. It's not like they're using a script.
Yeah, slight spoilers, but yeah, the version they do is not the traditional Cinderella in any way, shape, or form. So
no, but it seems to not be in the first place. So like maybe they have to write their own script. I don't know. Yeah. It's not super clear. Mm-hmm. But that's the only information I could find about Mito Komon. Yeah. So
1,227 episodes.
Yeah. I mean, it says, it says in this article, that there were like 13 different basic plots for the episode. So it would be like they find a thing, they go to a village and they find that there's like corruption, and then there's like a fight at the end. Like it's very like formulaic, basically like what I imagine like Law and Order must feel like to people outside of North America or something. like a serial like a drama, extremely crafted in terms of like how the plot goes every episode. Sort of formulaic. That's the word I was thinking of, like a formulaic drama. Anyway, it's just funny. It was funny to me that it was so upset.
Each of those episodes is about an hour long, which it says has a 54-minute running time. You would have to watch it for a little over 51 days straight to watch the entire series of Bito Coleman.
That's a lot of time. It's too much time. Yeah. I wonder how long it would take to watch all of Law and Order. Yeah. Probably about the same amount of time, actually. It's been running for a long time.
Probably if you're doing all the sub-series and everything.
Right, yes.
SVU and... Was it like Crime and Punishment? I don't know.
Crime and Punishment?
Criminal Investigations. I don't remember what it
was. Law and Order CSI? I mean...
There's another sub-series that's like...
There is, I can't remember what it's called.
It's like Criminal Investigations or something. Criminal Intent, that's what it is.
Oh, that's what it's called, yes. Well, okay. Is there any other things that you want to say about these two chapters? Should we talk about spoilers?
Probably.
Okay, good.
Before we start our Law and Order podcast, which will be debuting...
I would love to have a Law and Order podcast. It'll run for 5 years, based on the amount of time it would take to watch every episode. Yeah.
We'd have to do, special episodes on the video games.
Oh my god.
We'd have to find a computer that can run the video games.
There's got to be an emulator for Law and Order, right? It must have been an incredibly popular game. We can just do one for Law and Order. We can pick one of the... maybe we could just pick random episodes.
Yeah. Spin the Law and Order roulette. Anyway, I think that's it.
All right, good. I think so. Next time we're going to talk about, like we announced up top, we're going to talk about 84, 85, and 86. So we're getting a 3-chapter episode, which will be a good time. Mm-hmm. Definitely won't be long at all. Yeah. I noticed that the last episode episode 41 was like an hour and 40 minutes or something. So... They're quite long.
There's a lot of trauma to talk about in that episode, I think.
Yes. There was a lot of stuff that was revealed, too. Yeah. I think this one will probably end up being the same. Mm-hmm. I don't know how long we've been recording.
Depends on how much of our tangents you cut out.
Yes. That's always what it depends on. Okay, good. Let's talk about spoilers. Okay. Thank you all for listening. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Like in the Furuba justice system, the members of the Junichi are represented. No, yeah, I don't know. These are their stories.
Dum dum.
Yes. Okay, Furuba.
Yes.
In chapter 82, the first chapter that we read, Tohru remembers Rin freaking out when she came home from school, and then she also remembers when Kyo ran away in chapter 15, and she finds him. And I was just thinking that it's kind of like dramatic irony on our part, because that's when Kyo... So I went back and looked at that chapter, and that's when Kyo remembered her mom's accident, I think, for the first time. Maybe, like, for the first time in sort of, like, detail. Like, there's that really detailed panel where we see her mom all, like, bloody. It's in reverse. Mm-hmm. It was one of the times where I had to be like, and then Kyo sees a woman.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we talked about it back then. But it's kind of interesting that she remembers this again, and then later in this chapter she, like, remembers she has this, like, nightmare about her mother. So it was kind of interesting that they're tied together. It was just a little thing that I noticed.
Yeah.
We can only talk about it in spoilers, though, because Kyo's connection to Toru's mom hasn't been fully explained yet.
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody noticed that while reading it, because I definitely didn't the first time.
Yeah. I think we've revealed that they knew each other, I think. I just don't...
Right.
I'm trying to remember where we are in spoilers, but I don't think we've gotten any details.
It's been revealed that they knew each other... I can't remember which chapter it was, though. I remember, like,
I can't either, but...
Maybe when they go visit Shisho, or maybe at the beach? I forget.
I don't know, but I feel like we were talking about it, we're like, oh, we see that, like, they've got some connection. Like,
But not this one specifically, that he was there when she died.
yeah, definitely not yet.
No.
Yeah, we're getting close to getting the when they met when Kyo was little backstory.
Yeah, because we're going to talk about Kyoko and Katsuya pretty soon.
Yeah.
After the Sword of Cinderella? After Sword of Cinderella.
Yeah, it's like, I think not next volume, but the one after.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do our 3-chapter special about Yuki, and then it's going to be Sword of Cinderella.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then there's a chapter, then it's Sword of Cinderella.
Yeah, we're going to do, the 3 chapters and the 1 chapter, and then 2 chapters of Sword of Cinderella, and then it goes into the Kyoko backstory bomb.
Yeah. Crying again every episode.
It's the Furuba way.
Yeah, basically. Especially at this point in the story. It's just like pedal to the metal sadness.
Yeah.
It's like action,
It's
action, but sadness. Sadness.
This is something I knew. I just never really like vocalized the thought. It's kind of interesting that both Kyo and Toru's issues around their relationship with each other is centered around Kyoko.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And they don't even know. Well, I think Kyo knows. Kyo knows. Well, Kyo knows about his side and Toru knows about her side, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think up to this point, actually, it's interesting that you bring that up now, because it's up to this point, it seems like it's all been sort of like issues that are one-sided from Kyo's perspective. Like, he's like, I can't be with her because of I was there when Kyoko died and I couldn't save her. But also Toru is like, no, I gotta keep my mom number 1 in my heart, so I can't let Kyo be number 1 in my heart.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's the whole culmination of what happens at the end, right? So, or whatever.
Yeah, that's another thing that's, like, blatantly foreshadowed much earlier than I remember, like, Toru's whole thing.
Oh, I think now. I guess now. Maybe even earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we've had hints at it earlier, but, like, it's really blatant in this chapter.
I think so. That's why I felt comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, to some degree, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that, like, her, like, about to answer with, like, no hesitation, and then stopping and having that memory. And...
Yeah, exactly. And, like, every time I feel like she's had, that's the strongest time that we've seen it, but I think other things have happened where she has that expression as well, where it's, like, the dead-eyed kind of expression that we've seen a lot of times.
Yeah.
But in particular, the strongest this time, it got a whole, like, half a page devoted to it. Like, her reaction, it's intended that we pay attention to it this time.
Yeah.
And I think in the context that they're talking about it.
Yeah, and I didn't remember until reading this chapter how strong the connection is drawn between the bond of the curse and the bond Toru has with their mother.
I think we might have talked about it in spoilers before, because I'm pretty sure I talked about it before, but it was just like, this is a thing that's going to happen. But now I do think it's like implied a lot more strongly in this chapter than at other times in the past.
Yeah, and it's kind of like we also get some talk of the Zodiac curse, like how it actually originated with the Zodiac members making a promise to God. Yeah. And like we find out at the very end that, you know, it started as this like positive, like mutual thing, rather than like just being like God being on top, being above the animals and everything. It started as this like positive mutual thing that just got warped over time, which is kind of, we're seeing a, you know, smaller version of that with like, obviously Toru's relationship with her mother was very positive, but now it's like holding her back and keeping her from like embracing things and people she loves as much as she could. Yeah,
I do think it was, I hope we talked about it vaguely enough in the non-spoilers, but I think that's what we were trying to talk about, which is like, now, just like the bond, you know, just like the bond that we've seen with Aikido holds the Zodiac back from changing, Toru's bond with her mom also holds her back from changing and growing as a person. In case it wasn't explicit enough.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. It's like these sort of spoilers here are kind of like in reverse. Like this chapter kind of spoils like how positive the bond was at the beginning. Like we had, you know, hints of that and stuff, and it kind of spoils how like negative the bond with her Toru's mother is starting to become. So, and I think that's why it's like haunting her so much now. Is like she's starting to quote unquote forget
this promise that she made to herself, to her mother, about her mother.
Yeah, because it's like it's not the bond with her mother herself itself that's bad. Like that was obviously a very good and positive thing for both of them. It's that her like holding to this standard that is unrealistic and unneeded. But she thinks that if she lets go of that, it's going to be like her forgetting her mother and all that stuff.
It's not unlike the Zodiac promise. It's like the promise that the Zodiac made a promise that they would always be with God, and Tohru kind of made a promise that her mother would always be the most important person in her life, I guess, or in her heart. I think is what it says in the translation later. So
yeah, and that gets like a real direct connection when we get that flashback to the promise, because like the reason the cat was cast out was because he was like, no, I don't want this. I don't want forever. Yeah, it's unrealistic for her to maintain this relationship with her mother forever. But yeah, like you said, it's kind of an unnecessarily high standard to hold herself to not enable. It holds her back from forming like other supportive relationships in her life. And that's kind of what Rin is talking about. Rin is like, I hope that she finds... It's kind of funny how Rin equates it with being something romantic, I guess, too. Or maybe just someone... I don't know if it's actually romantic. It seems like that because she says that Tohru needs someone like Haru to support her. Which I initially thought was sort of like Tohru needs someone to, to care about her and be with her romantically or be important to her. But I think it's like beyond that. It's someone who can support her and understands that. I like the way that Rin describes it as being like slowly opening a closed door or something. Yeah. And it's ironic that Kyo's that person too, because Kyo also harbors all that guilt about her mom. So which is it's the main point of their conflict at the end of the series, when all the shit goes down. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Yeah, by fun, if you mean fun, by fun you mean sad and heart-wrenching, then yes. Of course, what else would I mean? Yeah, exactly. I have another spoilery thing that I want to talk about, if we're done talking about that, which is Rin says that Kureno is suspicious, and she also says that Tohru wouldn't understand. So, of course, that's like a spoiler about him not being cursed anymore. Yeah, she even specifically says, I can't think of him as one of us. Yeah. Which is, like, really on the nose when you know what's coming up. Yeah. Yeah, at first you're just kind of like, whatever, Rin, weirdo. Yeah. You could be like... And Toru's like, no, he's not like that. Like, because there's something suspicious about Kureno. He's just this kind of bland, sad person. At least to a non-cursed person. Yeah. He's so sad. He is really sad. She's like, someone who's... And her words are literally like, someone who stood so sadly and smiled so sadly or whatever. It's like, yeah, he's not suspicious. There's nothing wrong with him particularly. But of course it's because of the way they feel about the curse. Because they can feel that he's not part of the curse, even though they don't know. Yeah, they don't really know. And also, I mean, maybe partially because Aikido, like, emotionally blackmailed all of them into not being near him. Yeah, it's like, he's, like, enforced as being an outsider in addition to not having the curse anymore. Yeah. Yep. I just thought that was interesting. There's so much that's revealed. Like I said, we could have had a whole episode about that one chapter, probably. Yeah. If we wanted to, because there's so many things that are sort of in there that we could talk about. There's a lot going on in that one, and like the second chapter's mostly lead up for what's coming up. Yeah. So. But even then, there was a bunch of stuff that happened. Yeah. The other spoiler stuff I have is like, spoilers, the next chapters are going to be Yuki's backstory. It's not really like... Yeah, it's not really a spoiler. I mean, it's almost not a spoiler, but it's going to be Yuki's more full backstory, because it kind of... Yeah. We were just looking at it now because we were planning out what to do next, and it's like... I think we see some of the same times that we've already seen. Like, we see Yuki's mom kind of, like, dropping him off, and... Yeah, it's like a lot of the stuff that's coming up, I think we know abstractly, but we're about to see it in detail. Yeah. We know he was left with Aikido as a kid and was sickly as a kid. And is this the... So I noticed that, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but the black pain, of course, triggers Yuki's memory of Aikido, which is related to, like... I can't remember if the full backstory of that is going to be in these 3 chapters. I guess I could just look, but... I think it is. Because I think he, like, remembers, like, Aikido was kind of a jerk, but okay, and then, like, all of a sudden he snapped and was painting the walls black. Yeah. I forgot that there was a reference to that way earlier. It was in chapter 20, apparently. Yeah, it's got the panels here of Aikido, like, painting the walls black and screaming at Yuki. So. Poor baby Yuki, yes. Yeah. Baby Yuki is so cute. I know, so sad and adorable. Yeah. We also see baby Kyo.
Yeah, and one of the reveals, I mean, so he tells Kakeru that Toru's like his mother, but he also says that he wanted to be friends with Kyo, which is really sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that will be coming too. I'm really excited about... I wish that, like, Yuki and Machi's plot would move a little faster, but it can't. It just has to be this way. Although there's going to be a little bit of that coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what is it?
We got a Machi chapter in the next volume, I think.
It's also like, I'm like, does Kaya have some kind of like thing about people smashing into rooms where their like love interest, future love interest is going to be? I'm always like, just remember that Kyo jumped through the ceiling. That was how he and Tohru met.
Yeah.
And I guess Yuki walked in on...
If there's property damage, it's true love.
Yeah, definitely. Yuki walked in on Machi having destroyed the room the first time. That was how they met. Yeah. And in this one, she like smashes the door down. I thought it was great. It's interesting, like, she almost never makes eye contact with anybody. And then when she smashes through the room and they're alone, she just like makes direct eye contact with him, which is interesting. I don't know if there's some kind of like deal. I don't have any... I think I might have said this before, but I don't have any like major thoughts on that. It's just like nice to actually see her full expression. It's normally her eyes are like covered with her hair and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she like directly like talks to him and asks him if he's okay.
Yeah.
In that scene. So.
Yeah, because she can never get a word in around Kakeru and Kimi. Those were all the spoilers that I had.
Mine were in order: Zodiac Promise, quote, can't think of him as one of us, Toru's issues, and Yuki's backstory next.
So we're on the same page. Good.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's it for this sad time. Next time we get to have another
Slightly
sad time.
less sad than previous sad times.
Yeah.
Because there was some levity in there, but
it's true. Sometimes
it's sad.
Sometimes it hurts worse when it's Tohru. Because she is pictured as someone who's like generally sort of like cheerful and it's just like, oh, you're still like a 17-year-old girl whose mom is dead. Like it's so sad. And the way that she opens the door and calls for her and then closes the door, it's like, oh, you're still just the little kid, really. And it's very touching.
Deeply traumatized.
Yes. And other people kind of... Rin is right that other people are drawn to her, for her sort of emotional strength, but she's the one who needs to be supported sometimes.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Anyway, it's okay. It'll happen. That's what Q's for. And also Rin. I really enjoy their friendship. I think that it's funny and cute and sweet.
It's really sweet how quickly Rin really gives into it.
Yeah. She brings the Jell-O, and then Tohru is like, she's like, I brought this, and Rin is like, that's dumb. And then Toru's like, so I'm gonna put it away, and Rin is like, fine, I'll eat it later. Like, it's like a full, like, she doesn't want to admit it, but it's like 180 degree, like.
Yeah.
I loved her, I'm pretty sure I commented on it, but when she says, like, I'll eat it later, she has the tiniest little blush. Like,
it's like two tiny lines.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I don't want to admit it, but I want to eat the gelatin you brought me. It's really cute.
Yeah.
It's very sweet. She's like, I'm on my own, damn it. And Toru's like, I'm your friend, damn it. It's pretty great.
Also, she has her own refrigerator in her hospital room.
Right. Is she in a fancy hospital or something? Maybe they put her in a private hospital. I don't know.
Probably, in case she, like, turns into a horse.
But, like, we can pay all these people off.
Yeah.
To not talk or erase them, their memories.
Yeah, it's like we don't want her in a huge room full of people. That'll be more trouble.
Yeah.
It's just like her nurse. That's fine.
They look at her chart. It's like patient turned into horse ?
Yeah.
It made myself laugh.
It's like, yeah, it'd be like, maybe we need to... It's like, this person's been working too many shifts.
Yeah, really. Yeah. I don't know, yeah, I've never...
I kind of wonder if they have, like, a protocol in place, like, because, like, some of them are going to have to go to the hospital, and if you turn into an animal when you're weak...
Yeah, I don't know, what are you going to do?
Like, I don't know, maybe they have, like, a special hospital staffed with inner soma people.
I always...
Have, like, a special dispensation to know.
Maybe. But then they don't know Haru, so if that was true, they would know.
Yeah, I don't know if they would put... I was going to say, I don't know if they would put Rin there, but, like, for other people.
For Akito.
Because it seems like they... Yeah, because it seems like they deliberately tried to bring, like, Rin somewhere away from family connections, but, like, for everyone else, I kind of wonder for, like, standard medical issues.
I mean, they all see
Rin,
Hattori, so unless they're, like, dying,
Yeah.
I guess they go see him, you know? But they specifically were like, we'll have to wait until she, like, transforms back before she can go to a hospital, so.
Yeah.
You just have to be in a certain state of weakness, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It must be challenging.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am surprised I've never been in a hospital that had private refrigerators and rooms, so.
Yeah.
They have all the fanciest technology in Japan. Mini fridges.
Yeah.
It'd be...
Anyway,
I think that's it this time. That's it for spoilers. It's it for everything. We'll talk about Yuki next time.
so.
Yeah. Good times. And by
More
good times, I mean
sad.
sad times. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good, in the case of Furuba, good actually means sad.
It's good storytelling.
It is.
Good stuff to sink your teeth into, but it's sad.
What's life without feeling sad? What's life without emotions? That's the whole point of reading, isn't it? Like, to feel things. Yeah. Good. On that note, let's wrap it up then.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time for lots of Yuki. That's what's going to happen.
Bye.
Bye. Hello, it's Ellen. You probably just listened to us talk for, an hour and a half about Furuba. If you want to send us a question, you can find us on Twitter at staytogetherpod, on Tumblr at staytogetherpodcast.tumblr.com, or you can send us an old-fashioned email at staytogetherpodcast@gmail.com. Kayla and I want to keep creating podcasts and keep them ad-free. So if you like what you're listening to, please consider giving to our Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/staytogethernetwork. Thank you always for listening and for all your support. We'll see you next time.